Hey everybody, some of you may have heard the question before, does autism go away? Other variations of this question have been things like, do people grow out of autism? Do they kind of shed some of their autistic traits? Where are all the autistic adults? They're all basically rooted in the same question, which is, does autism adapt, change, or even go away after time? And the short answer is small yes, big no. And what I mean by that is small yes in the sense that things do change over time, big no in the sense that autism is here to stay. There's no known quote unquote cure or way to reverse autism. I know a lot of people have said that. I think what they generally mean is like with changes in diets and improvements and therapies that a lot of the so-called negative traits of autism have been helped. Especially things that are kind of somewhat disabling, whether they're learning how to talk better, they're learning how to adapt in school settings better or social settings. But at its very core, autism stays with the individual because it's a neurodevelopment issue. Now, some people might think that's a difference or disability. That's not what we're going to discuss today. The main thing is I want to focus, we have 3 kids on the spectrum if you're new to our channel. And they vary from high to more severe autism. And I want to show you a little bit of footage of my kids so you can see where they're at. Now, I'll start with our oldest, which is Ian. He was diagnosed when he was about 4 years old on the severe border. He has since improved a whole lot. There's been a lot of changes in his life. He's had a lot of therapies. And we wish we had caught it sooner, but he was our first child, so we were really new to autism. We didn't even know what it was at the time. And as you can still see, he's rocking back and forth here at church. He still flaps his hands and things like that. He's doing a lot better than where he was. He's still having some really difficult struggles that I don't want to get into in this video. They're of a private nature. We might talk a little bit more about that later. But I would say mostly he's light years ahead of where he was before. But as you can see from the footage, those autistic traits are still there. As far as developing any new ones or anything like that, he's been pretty consistent. He's rocked his whole life. He's hand flapped his whole life. He's had speech issues his whole life. Our next child, Connor, and stay to the end of the video because I do a little interview with him where he discusses some things that have changed and have stuck with him throughout the years. But generally, Connor has what's called autism passing, which means he tries as much as possible to look neurotypical, especially because he's in basic normal school. He's not in any special ed programs other than on the side, but most of his classes are generally just mainstream school, K to 12. And because of that, he has tried to fit in, just like anyone else. You don't want to be the odd man out. And so he's done his best to look normal, which is called autism passing, where you basically copy the traits of others, not because it comes to you intrinsically or because that's the normal flow of things, but because you just want to fit in, even if it works against what you want to do. So for example, he wanted to kick his feet in his desk at school, and his teacher got him a rubber band so he can bounce his feet on the rubber band, which did help him, and it helped be less distracting to the students around him because they'd hear the metal clanking of him kicking back and forth. But he still has issues. He still flaps his hands from time to time. He still walks on his tippy toes, still has some learning issues, but he's doing a lot better. And it can be very deceptive at times. A lot of people are like, well, hey, he looks normal. And it is because he has spent so much of his energy trying to pass. And also what's called scripting, where he, rehearses. Although he doesn't script as much as our older son, Ian, where they actually try to memorize appropriate responses like a multiple choice test. And so if someone asks them something like, how are you doing today? They say, fine, thanks. And that's about all you get because they were taught that was the appropriate response. Whereas if you talk to any neurotypical person, you're like, how was your day? Oh, fine. I went to the mall and they opened a new store and this, that, and the other thing. Whereas with people with autism, once you get past the first couple of sentences, you start to realize that they've just memorized the appropriate response. And if you want to have a conversation with them, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Our next son, Alistair, he's our youngest son. It's kind of interesting. In a way, he's almost gotten worse. I think a lot of that was spurred on by the pandemic and being locked indoors so much. But he started to develop new traits. Instead of having his traits slowly go away, his traits started to increase, such as the hand flapping. He started hitting himself in the back of the head more. He started rocking a little bit more. His speech decreased a little bit, his progression, until he went back to school. They recently opened up their schools again, and then he started to improve again. But he started to backslide a little bit and develop these new traits. And it was really interesting to see that, because up until that point, generally our thought was these traits kind of go away over time, but with Alistair, it was the opposite. And so now we're trying to get him more therapies and more help and try to get him back on track. So it's been really interesting to see that. So I know I kind of glossed over a lot. There's a lot more I could get into, but I do want to keep this video short so people can share it more easily and be a little bit more educated. Generally, when we make really long videos, not a lot of people watch them because they don't have the time, or they don't carve out the time. But yeah, so again, short answer, a little bit yes, mostly no when it comes to does autism go away. As you can see from the video footage, our kids have autism and it's here to stay. And it might get better in some areas, it might get worse in others. And it's certainly changed as Ian has hit puberty. He's had a host of all kinds of issues associated with his age changing and his body going through different changes that we were not expecting. And just day-to-day life has been altered because of that. Whereas things he had when he was a little kid sometimes aren't an issue. For example, just replaced the door for the third time upstairs. He used to bang his head on the door. He put a hole in the door from banging his head on the door so much. He doesn't do that anymore. Alistair didn't used to bang his head, and now he bangs his head on the wall whenever he's really frustrated. He'll go up to the wall and just start hitting it like that. So
Connor broke his glasses too.
Yeah, Connor got really angry and upset, and he'll take his hand and just smash it against his head, and he's broken his glasses several times. We're finally out of replacement options. We're over at Sam's Club, and they said we can only price, what was that, like 2 frames we could replace?
We've already gone through 2 frames, and we're on the third fix with super glue and
tape. So yeah, super glue and tape on his glasses, like those kids from the 1950s that had the duct tape around their glasses. Notice the tape on your glasses?
Yeah.
So what happened?
I think it's that I got too upset and I got really mad. So I thought smacking my face would make it better, but it didn't really. Of course it didn't.
Yeah. Anything else? You still wear your shirt inside out sometimes, we've noticed?
Wait, you mean like right now?
Is it inside out right now?
No.
It doesn't look like it. Looks like you got it right this time. And you can tie your shoes now. That's a huge improvement. Well, didn't used to be able to do that. You learned that last year.
Yeah, I did. And I still know how to do it right now.
That's awesome. What else? Was there anything you used to do when you were younger that you don't do anymore? You stim a little bit with your hands when you play video games and stuff like that. I noticed that. Yeah. Are you still snapping your fingers too, I notice?
Yeah, because I like making a sound.
Yeah. It's kind of like your stim.
Kind of, yeah.
Connor's the only one of our boys who has done that kind of snappy thing with his hands. Our other boys have, wiggled their fingers and stuff like that, but Connor likes to snap. Snappy.
Especially beside my ear.
You like to snap by your ear?
Yeah, sometimes.
Interesting.
Sometimes it makes me laugh a little.
Uh-huh. Cool. Thanks, Connor.
Oh, wait, is that chocolate?
So yeah, I hope you got something out of the video in the sense that obviously, things do change, but some things don't. That's the short answer. Hope that was helpful. Thanks so much for watching.